What is up, guys? It's your friendly neighborhood web word fanatic, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Ronin encounter set and why Ronan the Accuser is known as the most difficult villain in Marvel Champions. And we are going to be ranking every single card in this modular set, or in this encounter set, I mean, with all the recommended modular sets as well. So we have the Kree militants, we have the ship command with the Milano, and we also have the Power Stone here as well. And before we begin, I do want to give a huge shout out to Giant Lasagna, the meme king. He requested I make this video a few months ago, ranking all the encounter cards in Marvel Champions. And I thought, what better way to get started than with the most difficult encounter set, which is going to be Ronin here. So let's just go ahead and jump in it and get started. So we're going to first take a look at Ronan the Accuser, his villain card on stage 1 here. So we're going to be taking on this card if we were facing him on standard. So Ronan the Accuser, he has 2 schemes to attack. He comes in with toughness. As a force interrupt, whenever Ronan the Accuser activates against you, give him 1 additional boost card if you control the Power Stone. So really quick, for people that have not played Ronin, the Power Stone is this card right here. And it comes in attached to villain on the setup. But Ronin's setup on his main scheme tells you to put the Power Stone on your hero. So the hero will begin with the Power Stone if you're facing Ronin in a standalone scenario. And whoever has the Power Stone has +1 Thor or +1 scheme, depending on if Ronin has it or if the hero has it. And then whoever has it also has +1 attack. As a force response, so you must trigger it. After a hero or villain deals 3 or more damage to attached character with a single attack, attach the Power Stone to that attacking hero or villain. So basically, if we have the Power Stone, which we start the game off with, if Ronin deals at least 3 damage to us with a single attack, then he'll take the Power Stone away from us, and facing Ronin is kind of like a constant tug for the Power Stone. So for Ronan the Accuser here on his hero card, whenever he activates against you, you give him 1 additional boost card if you have the Power Stone. Since we start off with the Power Stone, that initial attack from Ronin is going to probably have 2 boost cards, which is pretty brutal. So it's hitting with a base of 2 and 2 boost cards. He does have some pretty high boost icons in his encounter set. So I think Ronin stage 1 is definitely not an easy villain, and he's not an easy card. So I definitely don't. Here are all the tiers I have. So S tier is going to be super scary. That means I have the deck build for this. I have to plan around this whenever I'm building a deck. And I'm always thinking about whether I'm not going to get that card reviewed in the encounter set. In the encounter deck, I mean. A is a huge pain, so I don't want to see this card. B is just your basic encounter card. C is not that bad. I don't mind seeing it. When I see it, I'm like, okay, that's not bad. And then D is lucky break. So if I see this encounter card, I'm like, yes, I am saved. I like to see that card. So for Ronan the Accuser on stage 1 here, he is definitely not your basic encounter. He is a huge pain. He's not super scary yet. This isn't like the worst thing about Ronan, but he's definitely a pain in the butt getting those two boost cards on his activation. And the worst thing about that is that it's for any activation, so it counts for a scheme activation as well. So if you're flipping down, often I like to flip down because the villain might attack for less, but he's still going to scheme with 2 boost cards if you have the Power Stone, so it's really, really bad. And then if Ronin has a Power Stone, he has a lot of other cards that synergize with that. So you kind of want to take the Power Stone, and you want to sometimes give it to him depending on what effects, right? So if he's getting less boost cards with the Power Stone, that's not bad. But if you had the Power Stone, he's getting more boost cards. Yeah, and it could be bad. So he's definitely a huge pain to play around, and you definitely have to strategize against him. Next, let's take a look at Ronin stage 2 here. So if you're playing him on standard, this would be the final stage that you have to defeat. And if you're playing him on expert, you will start off on this stage here. So he has 2 scheme, 3 attacks. So 1 more attack than his stage 1. Comes in with toughness as well. When reviewed, search the encounter deck and discard power for the cut the power side scheme and reveal it. So that's going to be this side scheme right here. It just has a crisis icon and 3 times player threat. Not the worst side scheme, but a little bit annoying because you can't remove that from the main scheme while it is in play. So you do have to get rid of it if you're trying to control the scenario. And as a force interrupt, he has the same effect. So whenever he activates against you, give him 1 additional boost card if you control a Power Stone. So definitely also going into a huge pain here. And I'm going to put it, of course, more difficult than stage 1. They're pretty close to being the same type of difficulty. It's just he has more hit points here, right? I think he has, let me see. He has 16 hit points. I believe, I can't zoom anymore. I believe he has 14 here. And actually, I believe he has 18 hit points on his stage 2 here. But they both just have that nasty force interrupt. Okay, next let's take a look at Ronin stage 3 here. So here he's pretty bad. So if you're facing him on expert, this will be the final stage. If you're playing on standard, you will never see this. which is a good thing. So he has 3 scheme, 4 attack, which is some of the highest stats that a villain can have in this game. 4 attack is crazy. 3 scheme is also nothing to scoff at. Definitely a lot of scheme as well. He also comes in with toughness, and he has retaliate 1, and that retaliate 1 is super duper annoying to deal with. When revealed, search the encounter and discard power for the superior tactic side scheme and reveal it. So that's going to be this side scheme right here. 2 times player threat, and then when this card is in play, the Power Stone cannot be unattached from Ronan the Accuser. When reviewed, attach the Power Stone to Ronan the Accuser. If it's already attached to him, place an additional 1 times player threat on here. So this side scheme doesn't inherently do anything, it just prevents the Power Stone from leaving Ronan. And depending on what happens, right, depending on what main scheme stage you're on, this could be bad or good, right? So if you have the main scheme still on stage 1, it's completely fine for Ronan to have the Power Stone. But if you have it, I don't know why I did quotes there, but if you have Ronan on his stage 2 here, on his main scheme stage 2, it says, while the Power Stone is attached to Ronan the Accuser, threat cannot be removed from this scheme. And if the stage is complete, the players lose the game. So if you have this out, Superior Tactics is terrible because Ronan will have the Power Stone and it can't be unattached from him. So that combos really well with his second stage here. And then the good thing about that is that since he'll have the Power Stone, he won't get 2 boost cards when he's attacking you, but you have to get the Power Stone back so you can remove threat from this main scheme. So depending on that, it could be really nasty. Overall, I don't think that's too bad of an effect. And if Force Disrupt hits the same thing again, he gets an additional boost card if you control a Power Stone. So this Ronin is definitely still super nasty. I mean, he's either going to go here or he's super scary. Do I think he's super scary level? Yeah, I think I'm going to put him here for now. And it's a very close line between the two, but he has 25 life, which is crazy high. Retaliate 1, toughness, and just 3 scheme 4 attack. I'm going to put him super scary for now, and I might drop him down to a huge pain. This is definitely not a card that you want to see. And you have to see if you're facing him on expert. Okay, next let's take a look at the first main scheme here. So main scheme stage 1 has 7 threat times player, and it's the first player. Actually, you can exhaust the Milano to remove 3 threat from the scheme, which is pretty nice. That means that if you can't lord it out, exhausting the Milano right here, which you can exhaust the Milano to generate a wild resource. So if you have it ready, you can actually just exhaust it to remove 3 threat, which bypasses patrol and stuff like that because it's not considered a thwart activation. So this could be really nice. It won't bypass the Christ icon here because this means that threat cannot be removed from the main scheme. But being able to remove threat without actually thwarting it, right, if you're confused or something like that, is pretty useful. So that makes this scheme a little bit easier to manage. But it starts out with 2 times player, and here's the worst part. There's not a lot of main schemes that do this, but Ronan's main scheme stage 1 adds 2 times player threat per turn, which is terrible because most main schemes only add 1 times player threat. And to top that off, it has a 7 threat threshold, which is not 7 threat threshold is not that bad, but getting +2 per turn means that even if you clear it all off, when Ronan begins his turn, he'll already have 2, so he'll only need 5 more threat to pop this. So that makes it a pretty low threat threshold because of the +2. So this is a card that is definitely above a basic encounter. I'm gonna put this in huge pain, and I think I'm actually gonna put this. It's balanced out by the first player action that you can do with the Milano. If it didn't have that, I would definitely put it here. No, I'll put it behind the Ronins. I think that it's definitely still not a card that I want to see. It's definitely above average on the curve of like, nasty encounter cards. But because of that first player action here, that helps a lot for the player to remove threat from the scheme, and it's going to help us a lot to manage it. So that's kind of the same grace, but adding +2 threat per turn, or 2 times player threat per turn, is super nasty. Okay, this one is bad here. So take what is mine is the main scheme 2B. So if Ronin hits 7 threat on here, it's going to advance to this stage 2 here. So like we said earlier, while the Power Stone is attached to Ronan the Accuser, threat cannot be removed from the scheme. If this stage is complete, the players lose a game. It's also going to add +2 times player threat each turn, which is not good. So this one's definitely worse than the previous main scheme, and it combos so well with so many of Ronin's cards, because if he's constantly hitting you with 2 boost cards here, there's a very high chance that he will eventually take the Power Stone from you, and you have to attack him and do at least 3 damage to take that Power Stone back. So this makes you engage with Ronin with taking the Power Stone, which is difficult because it means that you have to constantly attack him, and then after you take the Power Stone, you have to remove threat from here so it doesn't pop. So this is actually, in my opinion, worse than Ronin stage 1 and stage 2. So I'm going to put this right here in a huge pain. It is a terrible card to see. Most games that I'm playing Ronin, I try to keep his main scheme on stage 1. And often if it pops to stage 2, I'm on a ticking time bomb, right? If it hits this stage 2 right here, I probably have like around 3 to 4 more turns to win the game. And if I don't, I think it's usually going to be a loss. So that's how bad this card is. It kind of puts you on a ticking time bomb because you can't constantly be trading blows with Ronin and taking the power stone because he's going to attack and hit for so hard if you're doing that. So what I usually like to do is give Ronin the power stone and just stay on this first main scheme stage right here and try to control him. So if he advances to here, he becomes way more difficult to control. So I definitely think this is a very, very nasty counter card. It's not super duper scary, but it's definitely something that I don't want to deal with. And in my opinion, it's more difficult than Ronin's villain cards himself. Probably not as bad as stage 3 though. So I'm going to keep stage 3 up here for now. Alright, next we have the Kree Command Ship. And it has a permanent hazard icon, which is pretty bad because then you get an extra encounter card every single turn. As a first player interrupt. When a Treachery card is reviewed from the encounter deck, exhaust a Milana and spend 1 resource of any type. Cancel that card's 1 reviewed effects. So this is pretty nice because you can cancel the 1 reviewed effects of Treacheries. So I actually think this card is actually one of the saving graces of the Ronin encounter set. But the hazard icon is super nasty. So I'm actually going to put this here as a base encounter card. And no way a lot of you guys are thinking. You guys are thinking, oh man, Kree Command Ship, this card is terrible. Why isn't it in a huge pain? Well, the ability to cancel 1 encounter card per turn, it's actually really, really useful, and it helps a lot with the scenario. Sure, you're getting the hazard icon, so you're getting 2 encounter cards in solo every single turn instead of just 1. But if you're playing multiplayer, it's not going to be as bad because if you're playing like 4 players, instead of getting 4 encounter cards every single turn, you get 1 additional one, so it'll be 5. So you're playing multiplayer, this card gets a little bit weaker, but being able to cancel any of those cards while in Archer Eagle or in hero form is very, very useful. It can cancel in advance if Ronin gets a scheme activation. The only bad thing is if he gets 2 scheme activations, then he still gets a scheme off, right? Like 2 advances, I mean. So because of the ability to cancel, I think that it balances out with the nasty hazard icon. And oftentimes you could actually be better off getting this card because if you get a weak encounter card and like a scheme activation, you can cancel that scheme activation. But if the Kree Command Ship was not here and you only get 1 encounter card in solo, it might have just been that advance and then he'll just scheme anyway. So oftentimes it can be better having this card than not having it. But, you know, a lot of times it's definitely worse getting an extra encounter card. So I don't think it's a good card, but because of that first player interrupt, it kind of negates the negative effects of that hazard. So I'm going to put it here as a base encounter. It's not that bad of a card in my opinion. Alright, so next we have the Universal Weapon. Attached to Ronan the Accuser. Ronan the Accuser gains Stalwart. He also has +1 scheme, +1 attack while his attachment's on him. As a hero action, you can take 2 damage and do yourself 1 face-down encounter card. Shuffle the Universal Weapon into the encounter deck. And as a boost effect, attach Universal Weapon to Ronan the Accuser. So this card is super duper nasty. So the thing that I hate the most about this card is that you have to first take 2 damage, and then you do yourself a face-down encounter card, and you don't even get to discard the Universal Weapon. It just goes back into the encounter deck. So if you're super unlucky, it can come right back out again as a boost effect or as an encounter card. And the thing that's really bad is that the boost effect makes it come back out, right? Because you attach your Universal Weapon to Ronan the Accuser. So you can't even hope to get lucky that you'll get this card as a boost card because it'll come right back out. And a lot of strategies against Ronin revolve around stunning and confusing him and getting rid of the Universal Weapon. So if that is your strategy against Ronin, what I meant to say was that is not, in my opinion, that's not a reliable strategy against Ronin, because if you get rid of the Universal Weapon, take 2 damage and do all that stuff, do yourself an encounter card, you may get the Universal Weapon right back again. And if you're super unlucky, it can keep on cycling. So when I face Ronin, I prefer to try to not stun and confuse him and just leave the Universal Weapon on him. But if you get lucky and you get it off of him and you can stun lock him or confuse lock him, then that's a really viable way to take Ronin down. It's just, in my opinion, a little bit luck dependent because of that nasty boost effect. So I'm gonna put this card. It's definitely a huge pain, but for me, it's not as bad as the Ronins. And the reason why, I played so many games against Ronin where I just completely ignore this card. So it's effectively just giving him a +1 scheme, +1 attack in those games, which is definitely not a good thing. But at the end of the day, if I could just ignore all the text on it because I don't have any sense of confuse, I don't care about Stalwart, I don't care about the hero action, that's not that bad of a card. But for every other time where I do want to stun or confuse Ronin, then this is a super nasty card to get rid of. So It can be really bad and it can not be that bad. I think it'll average out in a huge pain here because it's never going to be a nice card to see. It's never going to be a saving grace like the basic, like the Kree Command Ship here, where canceling encounter card might be really good. All right, next we're going to take a look at the next card, which is Fanaticism. So Fanaticism has a Surge keyword. Ronin has +1 attack as an attachment. Attached to Ronan the Accuser, it comes in with 1 Fury counter plus 1 times player additional Fury counters. And as a force interrupt, whenever Ronan the Accuser attacks you, that attack gains Overkill and Piercing. At the end of that attack, remove 1 Fury counter from here. So this is a terrible card because there is no hero action to get rid of it. Ronan just gets it. And then he gets, at least 1 Fury counter on here. And the only way to get rid of it is to allow him to attack you. And you'll remove Fury counters per each attack. And Overkill and Piercing stacked together is terrible. It'll ignore tough. It'll overkill all the allies. And Ronin's already hitting for so hard, right? In expert mode, he has the 4 attack. He'll probably have 1 more from Universal Weapon. Have another +1 from the Fanaticism, so that's going to be 6 base attack. He has boost cards that give him additional boost cards. And if you have the Power Stone, he's going to get 2 boost cards right off the bat. So this is how Ronin's kind of known for hitting 10 to 15 damage in a single swing. And also having Overkill and Piercing. So this is definitely a terrible card. But not only that, it also has this surge keyword. So if you get this card as an encounter card, Ronin gets it, and you may just get an activation right after it, which is terrible. And and then that will combo really well with the Fanaticism, where he'll hit you super duper hard with the Overkill and Piercing right away. And since this is an attachment, we cannot cancel with the first player interrupt with the Kree Command Ship because this can only cancel Treacheries. And there's a lot of identity-specific cards that help you cancel Treacheries. Fanaticism is not Treachery. It cannot be canceled. In my opinion, this is definitely the worst encounter card in the entire game. And this is a big reason why Ronan the Accuser is known as one of the most difficult villains in the game because of this Fanaticism giving him Overkill and Piercing and Surge. It's just the worst card that you never want to see come out whenever you're playing against Ronin. And I've talked to a lot of people that say things like, if you get Fanaticism against Ronin, it's an auto loss. If you don't get it, then you can possibly win. I don't necessarily think that that's true because there are ways to mitigate it, and there are heroes that counter Fanaticism, right? Like Spider-Man has his backflip where Ronin can just attack and he can prevent all the damage and just make it down to 0. There's a lot of different heroes that can have different ways to block out the Fanaticism by reducing damage to 0. But if you aren't playing a hero like that, Fanaticism could be really, really tough to deal with for sure. So yeah, definitely the worst card in Ronin's encounter set, and this is a big part of why he is super duper nasty. So next we have Cut the Power. It's just a side scheme here with a crisis icon, 3 times player threat. So yeah, this card I do not mind seeing at all. I'm trying to think, is it even a lucky break here? Because just getting a side scheme, I mean, it's not a lucky break if you try to control it because you do have to deal with the side scheme because it does have, threat and a crisis icon, so we can't remove that from the main scheme while it is in play. So it's definitely not a lucky break because it is something you have to deal with, but it's something that I definitely do not mind seeing if I'm playing against Ronin. It's not like a card that's going to help me, but it's definitely not something good either. It's something that's not going to hurt me, and then I do have to deal with it immediately. Next we have the pincer maneuver here. So let me try to zoom in. So this is another side scheme here with 3 threat, 2 accelerations. It's hindered 2 times player. So when it's reviewed, if you're playing 1 player, it's going to have 5 threat. If you're playing 2 players, it'll have 7, and so on. So first player actually can exhaust Milan to remove 3 threat from this scheme, which is not bad. Being able to exhaust Milan to take 3 off means that it'll have a little bit less threat for you to threat off, but just have the double acceleration. In my opinion, this card is worse than Cut the Power because if I'm playing on solo, it comes in with 5 threat, and 5 is a little bit difficult to manage. I'm going to put this card as a basic encounter card in the game. It's definitely not a huge pain or the worst thing because he's not doing anything against you whenever you get this card out, but being forced to deal with 5 threat, or else he adds 2 more threat on the main scheme per turn, means that it is a high priority, and 5 threat is a decent amount to deal with, right? In 2 players, it's going to be 7 threat. For Cut the Power, in 2 players, it's going to be 6 threat. And then Cut the Power is going to scale a little bit better than pincer maneuver based on the amount of players, but the more players you have, it's going to be easier to remove threat. So this card is really, really bad just for solo because it's difficult to remove that 5 threat and also deal with everything else that Ronin is putting on the player. All right, next we have Superior Tactics, another side scheme here. So we talked about this card earlier. It comes with 2 times player threat. The Power Stone cannot be unattached from Ronan the Accuser. So this card combos really well with Ronin's Power Stone gimmick. And then when reviewed, attach the Power Stone to Ronin, so Ronin will automatically take the Power Stone whenever this card is reviewed. And then when you do damage to Ronin, you can no longer take the Power Stone unless you thwart this side scheme out first. And then if the Power Stone is already attached to Ronin the Accuser when this card is reviewed, place additional 1x player threat on here. This card, I'm going to put it in the basic encounter. I'm going to put it behind Pistol Maneuver. So when I'm playing Ronin personally, I actually think this card is a lucky break, because I usually give Ronin the Power Stone and I try to keep the main scheme here on this stage 1 here. So it doesn't matter that he has a Power Stone. He's literally just going to be activating with 1 less boost because he has a Power Stone. So for me, if I get this card as an encounter card, it's a lucky break because I don't have to deal with an encounter card that could have been something worse. But in situations or in decks, and I've definitely played this way before, where I am tugging with Ronin for the Power Stone, this is not a card you want to see because it will not only take the Power Stone away from you, but you have to immediately deal with this to take the Power Stone back. And if you're on this stage 2B, this card is definitely a huge pain level, right? Because it combos so well with it. So I think as an overall balance, I'm going to put this card as a basic encounter. It's definitely not... It can ramp up crazy. It can possibly be even super scary. If actually probably not that bad. It would probably be in a huge pain right here if he's on that stage main scheme 2B. But at the same time, it's a lucky break if you're playing a strategy that you want Ronin to just have the Power Stone, which is usually the way that I play. So I'm gonna average it out here as a basic counter card. Our next card we have here is Single-Minded Fury. When reviewed, Ronan the Accuser attacks a player who controls the Power Stone, even if that player is in Alter Ego. If no attack was made this way, this card gains Surge. So not a good card for sure. Usually when I get this card, I usually don't have the Power Stone, so it just surges. And surging is not good. So it's basically just, you know, 1 card through the encounter deck. So I'm going to put this card in a basic encounter here. And I think that it's going to go... I'm going to put it above the Kree Command Ship, because if Ronin attacks you, if you're in Alter Ego or in Hero form, that is never going to be good. Getting activation from Ronin is not something that you want to see. And oftentimes, he won't be able to get the attack off because he'll have the Power Stone, but then it will just surge anyways, which is also not good. So I think it's just a basic counter card. It's not like the worst activation, it's just an attack. But obviously we don't want Ronin attacking, and if we have the Power Stone, he's going to be hitting with 2 boost cards. So definitely not a good card, but a pretty basic encounter card, just giving the villain an extra activation. Alright, next we have Kree Physiology. It has a surge keyword. When reviewed, give Ronan the Accuser a tough stats card. If he already has a tough stats card, take 1 damage. So not a card that I want to see. So the thing with this card is it's actually not that bad, right? When reviewed, just give Ronan a tough stats card and you can just deal with whatever happens. And if he has one, then you have to take a damage. But the thing that makes this card super nasty is the surge. So no matter what, even if it's not that bad for Ronan to get that tough stats card, or if you take a damage, you still have to surge it. So at the end of the day, it's always going to be at least a surge, which means that it's going to minimum be a basic encounter card. It's never something that I don't mind seeing because I'm going to be getting an encounter card after it. So it automatically goes in this tier right here. And I'm going to put it pretty high up in this tier. Yeah, I'm going to put it right here. Because the thing with this card, actually, I'm going to put it above Single-Minded Fury because it's been really annoying for me a lot of times. If you are ready to gun Ronin down, or if you're playing a rush strategy against him, which is totally viable against Ronin to try to rush him down, this card is like the biggest thorn in your side, right? I would even say that it's an A tier level card if you're rushing Ronin down. But other than that, I'm going to put it as a basic encounter here, like not that bad, because at the end of the day, it's not like an activation or anything like that. It just surges. But if you have the kill shot, Ronin getting tough and also getting another encounter card on top of that is brutal for the player to deal with. So yeah, I'm going to put it here as a basic encounter, but I can definitely see sometimes where it can be a huge pain. Next we have You Stand Accused. So this is the basic activation card for in an encounter set for a villain, right? So almost every single villain in the game, not every single one, but most villains in the game have an encounter card which just says when reviewed in Alter Ego, that villain will scheme, and when reviewed in Hero form, that villain will attack you. And they usually have some sort of gimmick that builds off of that. So You Stand Accused is that card in Ronin's deck, and he has 3 copies of it in his deck. And then when reviewed in Alter Ego, Ronan the Accuser schemes with +1 scheme. So it's a little bit worse than the regular one because he's going to get +1 scheme for that activation. And then when reviewed in Hero form, Ronan the Accuser attacks you with +1 attack. So same exact thing, but extra attack. This card is definitely above the level of a regular activation because of that +1 scheme, +1 attack. And then the boost effect here is to give the villain 1 additional boost card for this activation, and it has already a boost icon on there, right? So you could theoretically, and I think it's happened to me before, you stand accused as a boost, you get another boost, you get another you stand accused, you get another you stand accused, and you already have a second boost card there from Ronin because you have the Power Stone, and he'll get another boost card on top of that because of the you stand accused, giving you another boost. So this is how Ronin can actually even hit for like 20 damage, which is super insane. So this is a super bad card because of its boost effect, and it has a very nasty activation as well. And I'll definitely put this in a huge pain here. And I'll put it, I'm gonna put it, this is not as bad as the Ronins. So I'm gonna put it right here above the universal weapon, because oftentimes if you're ready to gun Ronin down and you get the universal weapon as an encounter card, it's not that bad because there's no immediate pressure from that. But you stand accused is always immediate pressure because it's always going to be an activation, and getting a +1 to both his stats for the activation is super nasty, and as a boost card is super nasty as well. Usually for a standard activation, I'll put it here in the basic encounter, which is why I have the single minded fury here as a basic encounter card. But this is a level above, like a basic, a basic activation encounter card, I mean. So that's pretty standard to have a basic activation, but this one, getting the +1 to the stats, or as a boost effect, giving an additional boost card, makes it definitely a level above a regular villain activation encounter card. All right, so next, we're actually done with all the Ronin encounter cards. So now we're going to be taking a look at the recommended module sets as when playing with Ronin, which is going to be the Kree militants. And then the Ship Command and Power Stone are actually required when you're playing against Ronin. So that's going to be these cards over here. So first, let's do the recommended here, which is the Kree militants. So first card here is going to be the Kree Combat Armor. Attach the enemy with the highest attack. Reduce the amount of damage attached character takes from each attack by 1. As a hero action, we can spend 3 resources at the same time to discard this card. So this card right here, usually for me, it's a lucky break because I'm usually playing a build style against Ronin. But I have to account for Rush. So I think I'm going to actually put this card in the Don't Mind Seeing. And I'll put it a little bit tougher than the Cut the Power. And that's just because if you're playing a build style against Ronin, you eventually have enough resources to spend 3 resources at the same time to get rid of this card. So it's not that bad at all. But if you're playing Rush, it can be stifling to reduce the amount of damage from each attack by 1. But at the same time, it's not as bad as like a You Stand Accused where he's actually attacking you or scheming against you, right? So it's not going to be a level of activation. And if he gets an activation, which is a basic encounter card in my opinion, that's definitely way worse than getting a Kree Command Armor, which has no immediate pressure. So this is definitely a card I think I don't mind seeing even if I'm playing Rush, because it's just less pressure for me to deal with than like him actually activating against me or something immediate that I have to deal with like a Prince Maneuver or Superior Tactics. So definitely a card I don't mind seeing. And if you're playing build out against Ronin, this is definitely a lucky break type of card. So yeah, I'll just put it in don't mind seeing for the overall type of thing. Next we have the Kree Commando, which is a minion in the Kree militants here. So Ronin actually does not have any minions in his regular encounter set. He only have it if you're playing with the Kree militants modular. So it's so these 3 minions here, the Kree Commander, Kree Lieutenant, and Kree Private, Ronin has multiple copies of these guys in his deck. I believe it's 3 copies of each one. Yeah, I believe it's 3 copies of each one. And then the reason that they're so bad, they're pretty annoying as a minion themselves, right? Because the Kree Commando has 2 attack, which is pretty high, 6 hit points, which is really high, in patrol, so you can't throw out the main scheme while he's in play. Kree Lieutenant has 2 scheme, 1 attack, 7 life, and the guard and stalwart, so you have to kill him if you want to attack Ronin. And Kree Private has quick strike, which is not that bad for 1 scheme, 1 attack, and 5 life. So Kree Privates is the one that's not that bad, but these 2 guys are pretty annoying. But the big thing that makes these guys super duper bad with Ronin in common with all of his other stuff is the boost effects, right? So the Kree Commando, if this activation is attack, this attack gains piercing. So if you think you're safe with toughness and Ronin does not have fanaticism, if he pulls a Kree Commando as a boost card, he'll pierce the tough and probably do a bunch of damage to you. If he's attacking with a Kree Lieutenant, it says if this activation is attack, this card gets +3 boost icons, super duper nasty. 3 boost icons is one of the higher, it's definitely on the higher end of boost icons, so it can do a lot of damage. And the Kree Private, if this activation is attack, this attack gains overkill. That, in my opinion, is definitely the worst boost effect of the 3. So even though it's the easiest minion to deal with, it has the worst boost effect. So these guys are definitely not good cards to see. So how am I going to evaluate them? Because it's going to be hard, right? I'll just talk it through and then give you guys my overall opinion. So for the Kree Commando, if I get him as an encounter card, I don't mind seeing him here. And if I get him as a boost card, I usually think it's not that bad. I don't mind seeing it unless I have tough. But in the situation that I do have tough, he's pretty nasty. So I'm going to put him here in the basic encounters. He's definitely not as bad as a pincer maneuver. So I think I'll put him right here. Usually I think minions aren't the worst thing to get. Even though he is pretty tanky with 6 life. It's not that bad because it's not any immediate pressure, and you can try to deal with it during the player phase. Alright, next we have the Kree Lieutenant. Kree Lieutenant is definitely, in my opinion, not as bad as the Kree Commando. He has 2 schemes, so it's pretty nasty, and he'll get you +3 boost icons for an attack, but it still doesn't have piercing or overkill, so that's not that bad, but it is more damage. And then the guard means that you have to deal with him before you get to Ronin, so that could be nasty. The Star Wars not that big of a deal because I'm usually not sending confusing minions anyways. I'm gonna put the Kree Lieutenant behind Superior Tactics here. It's not a card I don't mind seeing because 7 life is pretty hefty to get rid of. But usually if he just comes out, it's not any immediate pressure, so I could just deal with him in a few turns. And he's only going to be doing 1 attack per turn if I stay in hero form. So it's not the worst thing in the world. And then lastly, the Kree Private. This is a card that I don't mind seeing for sure. Actually, I think it's even a lucky break if you get him as an encounter card because he's not that bad of a minion and he has Quick Strike. So if you get him in Alter Ego, the Quick Strike won't even go off. So he's definitely a lucky break to review as an encounter card, but the boost effect is super duper scary, right? Giving Ronin a wild overkill at any moment is terrible. So I'm always looking at the discard power for the encounter deck to make sure that I have all 3 copies of the Kree Private gone, and that makes it feel a lot more safe to block with the ally. So to average it out, I'm going to actually put this card in a huge pain. I think it's pretty nasty. I'll put it last here in a huge pain because to get it as an encounter card, it's not that bad. It's just really that boost effect. Any boost effect with overkill is definitely something to look out for in a terrible card. So it's going to be a huge pain here, but mostly for that boost, not really as an encounter card. Yeah, so I'll just put him right here. All right. So that's I think that's it with the Kree Militant. So that is the recommended module set that we don't have to play with, but it is recommended when you are playing with Ronin. So next we have the Ship Command, which is a required module set when you're playing Ronan the Accuser. So the first card in Ship Command is actually going to be the Milano here. So the Milano says the first player controls the Milano, and then we can exhaust it to generate a wild resource for any player, which is really, really good. So let me see. I mean, the Milano is never going to be a bad card, so I'm going to go ahead and put it here in a lucky break. It's something that we want, and it is a player card for players to control. So I don't know if this is like the best way to evaluate it, but it is a good card for a player, so I'm putting in a lucky break as a card that I like to see. And if I'm playing an encounter set or a scenario that has a Milano in it, whether it's recommended or we're just putting it in, I definitely like that. So Milano is a card that I want to see, so I'm going to put it in the lucky break here because that's kind of the category for cards that we want to see. Now, there are a lot of complaints with the Milano, and people will say things like this. So for the Whole Breach Peril, so when you're resolving this card and you get this card as a counter card, other players cannot help you. Whenever you choose one, you can either choose to exhaust Milano, you can spend 2 mental resources, or deal 3 damage to your first player. So this card could be bad if you cannot exhaust Milano, because then you have to either do 3 damage yourself or spend 2 mental resources. But in my opinion, the Milano is still a good module set to have, because at worst, you just won't be able to use the Milano, right? You have to exhaust Milano to do the Whole Breach here. But at best, I mean, you can still exhaust Milano during your player phase to generate a wild resource. Then when the villain phase comes up, the Milano is ready, so you can use it with the Whole Breach. And then you just won't be able to use Milano that next upcoming player phase, right? Because it's already exhausted. So at the end of the day, I think that the Ship Command is a good module set that makes Ronin actually a little bit easier. And the Milano is a great card that helps the player out a lot, generating that extra resource and dealing with a lot of first player actions, right? Like the main scheme here for Ronin is you can exhaust Milano to remove 3 threat from the scheme. Pincer Maneuver, same thing. You can exhaust Milano, remove 3 threat. So Milano is always going to be helpful. I think it's always a lucky break, even though Ship Command can have some nasty cards in it. So for the Whole Breach here, I'm going to put this card. I mean, I've often just taken the 3 damage or spend the 2 mental resource if I want to save the Milano for the first player interrupt on the Kree Command Ship here, because the Milano must exhaust for it, so I usually just save it for that. And the Whole Breach is definitely not that bad of a card to get. I'm going to actually put this in a lucky break, and it's been a lucky break for me so often. I'm put it what let me see, how am I calculating this? So the Milano, okay, the Milano helps the player, right? So it's definitely gonna go last here in the lucky break because it's like the best card for the player. Hull Breach is definitely a card I want to see because at easiest, if it's a last encounter card that I'm getting, I just exhaust Milano and then I'm fine. If I know I'm getting one more encounter card because of the hazard icon right here, and Hull Breach is the first encounter card, I just take 3 damage or spend 2 mental resources. It's not that bad compared to like a villain activation, right? If Ronin's attacking you, he's going to do more than 3 damage. So I'll much rather take that 3 damage. And it's something that I'll know for certain, right? Taking 3 damage, is it going to kill me or not? If it is, then I'll spend 2 mentos or exhaust Milano. If it's not, I just take 3 damage. So yeah, I don't think the Hull Breach is that bad of a card. Next, we have the Power Stone, which is in the Power Stone modular set. We already talked about the Power Stone a little bit earlier. It's just +1 Thor, +1 attack. This card, I think, is actually not a lucky break for the player, even if you do get to start the scenario off with the Power Stone. I'm going to put this card, man, it's actually a little bit of a pain. So it's nice early game. I'll put this card last here in a huge pain. So the Power Stone is really nice early game because your hero gets out +1 Thor, +1 attack. So when you start off the game, you already have an extra Thor to your hero stats, which is really nice. But after that, it really just becomes a huge pain because Ronin's constantly trying to tug you for the Power Stone, and if you have it, he's giving you he's getting 2 boost cards every single activation. I'd rather not have the Power Stone than have Ronin have an extra encounter card or an extra boost card, right? And when Ronin has a Power Stone, he's gonna have that +1 Thor, +1 scheme. I mean +1 attack, and then he'll have combos off of like superior tactics right here. He'll combo off with his second main scheme, which makes me scared to allow him to flip the second main scheme. So yeah, I think Power Stone is definitely a huge pain, and I'd rather, if this scenario did not have the Power Stone in play at all, I think it would be a lot easier of a scenario because then we could allow Ronin to advance to stage 2B and just deal with it because we can remove threat from it easily without taking the Power Stone. But because the Power Stone is here, it makes it a lot more difficult because we have to constantly take the Power Stone from Ronin if he gets to this stage 2B here. So yeah, Power Stone is not a good card for a player in my opinion. That might be a hot take. Definitely let me know what you guys think about that if you disagree or if you do agree. So next card we have here is the Special Delivery, another card in the Ship Command modular set here. So when reviewed in Alter Ego, you may exhaust Milano. If you do not, the villain schemes with +1 scheme. When reviewed in hero form, you may exhaust Milano. If you do not, the villain attacks you with +1 attack. So this is similar to that basic activation that the villain will get, but you can exhaust a Milano to cancel the effects. And what's really nice with this is that you don't have to use a first player interrupt here to spend a resource and exhaust Milano. You can just exhaust the Milano straight away to cancel the Special Delivery. So this card is, I'm put this in Don't Mind Seeing. I'm put this here as the first card in Don't Mind Seeing, because if the Milano is already exhausted, right, because you're revealing multiple encounter cards and you already exhaust Milano for something else, then special delivery is bad because it goes into the base encounter here, where Ronin's gonna attack you or scheme with +1 scheme, +1 attack. So it's arguably even a huge pain here. But oftentimes, if I get this card, it's not that bad because you can just exhaust Milano and cancel the activation without spending another resource, right? So that's why the Milano is so helpful for the player, because if you're getting multiple encounter cards, that's where this kind of mixes up. But let's say you're just getting one encounter card because you're not facing Ronin with the Ship Command. Then if you get Special Delivery, that's your only encounter card. You can just exhaust Milano and then you're done. It's back to your play phase. You can do whatever you want, right? So this is actually a card I don't mind seeing, and I've often done that even against Ronin. Because at the end of the day, just exhausting Milano to cancel one encounter card. The Milano is not even really your card. It's an added card you get for this scenario. So if I can just exhaust Milano and cancel out, one encounter card, I am more than happy to do that. That's not that bad of an effect. So I'm going to put it here in the Don't Mind Seeing. But I could definitely see cases where it's really nasty if you cannot exhaust Milano for it. Okay, next we have the Rogue Vessel, and this card I hate a lot. So it has a surge keyword, force interrupt when the villain phase ends, deal 1 damage to each player. As a first player action, you can exhaust a Milano and spend 2 resources of any type to discard this card. This card is one of my most hated cards in the Ronin whenever I'm facing Ronin. So this card definitely goes in a huge pain, and it actually goes pretty high up. It's not as bad as this main scheme to be, but I'm gonna put it actually above the Ronins here. And here's the thing, I really take into account the surge keyword, and surging has a huge factor for me in how bad an encounter card is, right? So for the Rogue Vessel here, when you review this encounter card, it just comes into play as an environment, right? And then whenever the villain phase ends, you're gonna have to do 1 damage to each player, so we will be taking damage no matter what. Then during the player phase, you have to not only exhaust Milan, so it must be readied up. You cannot have used Milan for any of this other stuff, which I don't think is that bad to exhaust Milano. I don't think it's that bad to exhaust Milano. Sorry, I was slurring there. But the fact you have to spend 2 resources of any type in addition to exhausting Milano makes this card absolutely terrible. I hate this card, one of the worst cards for sure. And to top it off, right, if it was just that effect, I'll probably put it as a basic encounter because it doesn't deal any immediate pressure. Other than the 1 damage, which could be brutal if you have like 1 hit point left or if you're playing like Deadpool. But the Surge, man, it's that Surge. Like, so no matter what, even if you get this card, you could easily just get an activation like you stand accused right after from the Surging of the Rogue Vessel. So Surging makes this card brutal because it's already a super nasty effect. And any card that has Surge, in my opinion, is already going to be at least a basic encounter level because you're getting another encounter card after that, right? But the fact that it's a super nasty effect requires you to spend a ton of resources to get rid of. And the Surge, this is a huge pain to deal with. Um, Obviously, if you have the kill on Ronin and you get this as an encounter card, it's not that bad because you can just ignore all the rest of the effects. But you can still surge into something that kills you, so it's still not a card you want to see, and it's still above the level of like a basic encounter card that doesn't surge. But definitely, if you're building out, this card is terrible to see because you have to get rid of it, and it's gonna surge as well. So not a card I want to see. Not as bad as this main scheme stage 2B, which I'm always fearful of getting, but definitely a super nasty card for Ronin and a huge pain for sure. All right, next we have another Ship Command card, which is the Power Siphon Peril. So when you get this card as a counter card, other players cannot help you if you're playing multiplayer. When reviewed, choose one. You can either exhaust Milano, which is not that bad, spend 2 energy resources, or just discard 1 card at random from the first player's hand. Definitely also a lucky break type of card that I like to see. I like it. I think it's weird how I'm doing this ranking here. So the closer that is up is going to be the more difficult that it is, right? So, like for example, for here, Single Minded Fury, in my opinion, is not as bad as Kree Physiology. Kree Command Armor is not as bad as Special Delivery. I definitely prefer Hold Breach over Power Siphon because I usually don't mind the 3 damage to a first player. And I don't like discarding card at random from my hand. If it was just discard 1 card, I don't think it's that bad. But random means you can lose that key card that you want to play during the player phase. So definitely not an effect I want to see, but still not bad. It goes in Lucky Break because the Milan can just exhaust to take it out. And even if you can't exhaust Milan, all you gotta do is either just discard a card from your hand or spend 2 energies, which is not the end of the world. It's no immediate pressure to end the game for the player. Next, we have another side scheme here for the Ship Command. Hindered 3 times player. So this scale is like crazy per player because if you're playing like, I don't know, 4 players, it's going to be 12 plus the 1 threat. It's going to be 13 threat here, right? But for a single player, it's only going to be 4 threat with hinder 3 plus the 1. First player actually can exhaust Milan to remove 3 threat from the scheme. And it comes with Amplify. Amplify is probably the easiest icon to deal with of all the side schemes, right? It's better than getting a Crisis, better than getting 2 Accelerations, and better than getting a Hazard here, right? So the Cannonade, I think it is definitely going to be a lucky break. Probably one of the easiest cards to deal with here. So this is also a big reason why I like the Ship Command modular set. A lot of these encounter cards from Ship Command are not that bad to deal with, even though the Rogue Vessel is probably the worst thing. But usually I think that the Milano provides more benefit than it is if you were to get the Rogue Vessel, right? So the Milano is just a huge push for the player. Cannonade, it just comes as a side scheme. There's no immediate pressure from it, right? So if you have the kill, it's not going to stop you. It has an Amplify, which is definitely not good with Ronin because he can easily get multiple boost cards, and each one of those boost cards will get +1 boost icon because of the Amplify. But it's not that hard to remove the threat from here, only being 4 threat. And if you use this first player action here, and you can just throw it for 1 to clear it off. So definitely a card I love to see if I'm playing Ronin. If I get as an encounter card, I'm like, yes, I got a lucky break. And then lastly, we have Blindside here. So Peril, other players can help you when you are dealing with this encounter card. When review, choose one, exhaust Milano, spend 2 physical resources, or stun the first player. So it's very similar to Power Siphon and Hold Breach. But this, in my opinion, is the easiest one to deal with of the 3. I love this card a lot because I like to just take that stun. I'm usually building out against Ronin, so taking that stun is not that bad. Definitely, if you're rushing him, the stun could be bad. But if you're rushing him, you usually have a lot of ways to do damage. So hopefully, you can just have your hero make a basic attack to remove the stun. And it's definitely still better, even if you're rushing him, than getting like Special Delivery or an activation like Single Minded Fury. because Ronin can actually defeat you and end the game if he gets cards like that. Versus for the blind side here, he's definitely not going to win against you. You just might have to get stunned or exhaust some mana or spend 2 physicals. So definitely my favorite card to see out of these three. And it's interesting that um, a lot of the cards, 5 of the cards in Ship Command, in my opinion, including the Milano, are actually cards that I like to see against Ronin. So, I mean, this encounter set definitely makes Ronin easier, in my opinion, and is a required modular set. Sorry, modular set, I mean. But this is a required modular set when you're playing against Ronin the Accuser. So, it speaks volumes that this dilutes the Ronin encounter set deck a lot. Yeah, there we have it. So, Ronan the Accuser, in my opinion, he has 2 super scary cards. And as I'm doing this series, and I'm gonna do, I'm gonna try to do all the villains in the game. I don't know if I'll ever finish that, but I definitely want to try. I don't think I'm gonna put that many cards in the super scary here, right? I think you have to really be a level above in scariness. It has to be a Finesse level or a Ronan the Accuser stage 3 level, right? Where he has 25 hit points, retaliate, toughness, 3 scheme, 4 attack, gets an addition boost card if he activates you against you and you have the power stone, right? All that stuff is super duper scary, and so is the fanaticism, right? And I think that is take what is mine. That's scary. That is no. I mean, I think for now, I mean, I could easily see this card being super duper scary. I am gonna put this card in super scary. I think this is compared to all the other main schemes in the game. This is probably one of the worst main schemes because you cannot remove because there's a condition on it which blocks you from removing threat, which is super duper terrible, right? If Ronin has a power stone, you have to constantly be aware of taking the power stone because we can't remove threat from this scheme if Ronin has a power stone. So I think this is a super duper scary card. I am gonna bump it up. Um, Man, the Rogue Vessel, it is a huge pain. I mean, I actually think it's super scary in my opinion, but I'm gonna leave it here in a huge pain because I could definitely see its actual effect not being that bad. Man, just that surge though. Do I want to bump it up? No, I think I'm gonna keep it here. I think at the end of the day, the actual effect of the card is not that bad. It's really just a surging in combination with that effect that makes it really nasty. So yeah, I think take what is mine. It's something that I'm always conscious of. Not letting the main scheme flip to this, right? So these 3 cards are 3 things that I never ever want to see when I'm facing Ronan the Accuser. And I think it makes sense why he's so tough because of these cards, right? So if you're facing him on Expert, you have to deal with this 3rd Ronin stage no matter what. So he's already going to be a super duper villain. And then right here with the stage 2B, it's so important for a player to not allow the main scheme here to pop and flip to and advance, I mean, to stage 2B. So because that's such a huge strategy and gameplay for me when I'm playing against Ronin, this is something that's, I don't know how to describe it. This is already something that's in his modulars, in his encounter set. And if you let the main scheme stage 1 pop, it'll automatically go here, right? So it's not just an encounter card that you can get like Fanaticism. It's something that's innate to Ronin, and you can avoid it if you can keep this main scheme from flipping, but it's difficult because it's adding +2 per turn. If you flip down 1 time, Ronin's probably going to scheme for 5, right? Unless you have a way to prevent that, or if you get super duper lucky, one flip without confusing Ronin is going to allow him to flip this, or if he gets as an encounter card, any scheme activations is going to flip this immediately as well, right? So because of the easiness to flip this first main scheme and get this second main scheme, I think it's super, super scary. And Fanaticism, I mean, what else can be said? It's the worst encounter card in the game. If any villain has this encounter card, that villain automatically becomes a tough villain because they'll have overkill and piercing. Even if they only have like, 1 base attack, it's going to be 2 with the Fanaticism, and then they'll get a boost card as well, and there's no way to block it out with the ally or tough status card. So super duper nasty card, always bad to see. So yeah, I hope that this is kind of a good description of Ronin, and I hope that for people that have not played him or people that have played him a few times, that this is a useful guide for you to kind of see and think about what you don't want to see whenever you're facing Ronin and what is good to see in the encounter discard pile whenever you are facing this villain. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know if you liked the series and if you want me to continue it. I'm not sure. Huge shouts to Giant Lasagna again. I think this is a fun series for me to do to really analyze each villain scenario. And yeah, if you guys do want me to continue, please let me know down in the comments, and also let me know what scenario you want me to do next. Like, do you want me to do Venom Goblin next, or do you want me to do like an easier scenario like a Rhino or something like that, and just analyze all of those cards in that encounter set? But yeah, these are the Ronin cards. Yeah, it looks like Almost everything from the C and D tiers are not Ronin cards, right? Only Cut the Power is. And everything else is from the modular sets, right? So Kree Command armors from the Kree militants. These are all from Ship Command. And then for the basic encounters here, yeah, I mean, the Kree militants is super duper nasty and it works so well with Ronin. Sorry guys, I'm kind of going back and forth here, but yeah, that's gonna be this video. I was just analyzing the tier list a little bit more, but I hope you guys enjoyed these rankings and this tier list. Let me know if you want me to continue the series, and let me know what villain you guys want to see me do next. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.